All right, welcome, Dr. Matthew Rowley, to the Biodigital Convergence Transhumanist Report, or as I like to call it on YouTube, I call it sheepdogging with Tom Deans. But I appreciate your time, man. I love talking about all things Alberta independence. So yeah, man, we're gonna dive into some. You have a really developed mind, right? And I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and I find like some of your views really fascinating, and it really helps, right? Like it really helps bridge out the intelligence as to why we should become independent and also being open to like just the full spectrum of ideas out there, right? Like I really encourage people to try and like let's try and work together and not attack each other too much. Like on X is where you see everyone like kind of like I call it like spitting digital poison, but oh well, it's a free platform, but it's a digital warfare out there. But again, thanks, Dr. Rowley, for joining us. And first and foremost, I want to highlight the fact that he is the president and founder of Renew Alberta, a fifth generation Albertan too, right? That's wild. And he has a PhD in political theology and is a missionary professor by trade. So this guy's a real man of faith. He believes strongly in the cause of Alberta independence and in general seeks to see Alberta strong and free. So yeah, we're in good company here. And yeah, I just kind of dived into all this myself over the last 6 months, worked as a canvasser, and that really changed my life. Just getting out there, right? Getting out there with real people and just becoming a part of the conversation. So I think that's where it begins. And then, of course, we actually have to have a plan. But I mean, it's been spreading. I mean, just by looking at some of the polls and just the amount of people that do support this is impressive. So again, welcome to the show. And is there anything you'd like to say right off the bat, just kind of diving in? So I'll just put it this way, like where are we at? Like what's going on? And with some of the court challenges we're facing like right now, like what do you have to say about like what's going on here with these stay orders and Justice Shayna Leonard and
Yeah.
the First Nations and all these things that are going on, right? All these little political theater, I call it some of it, but what do you got to say about all this kind of stuff? Huh.
Well, I am very excited with the way that things are going. Funny enough, this is probably the best possible world it could be. I know there's some that are a bit frustrated because politics is involved, but politics is involved. That's
Yeah.
the nature of politics. If you ever think you're going to get all that you want out of politics, quit and start fantasy business, I guess. But we are seeing growth in the movement. We're seeing people who are realizing that Ottawa is not going to fix the problem on its own. And that's probably the biggest win for us. And even these court cases, these were a perfect example of why independence is necessary. We could not have had a better thing happen to prove our point. We went to ask a simple question of Albertans, and an unelected judge appointed by not Pierre Trudeau, Justin Trudeau,
Yeah.
decided that we did not have the right to ask a question of our fellow Albertans. This is actually the core problem. It's not about economics. Like economics, yes, that's an issue. But the reason that we have such a problem with Ottawa is not merely because we don't have as much money in our wallet as we could. That's a frustration for sure. Not being able to build Alberta is a problem. But the big issue is the fact that when we try to govern ourselves the way that we please, when Albertans try to be Albertan, the courts and the parliament in Ottawa stop us from doing what we please. And this was not the way Confederation was meant to work. We are a confederation. We are not a centralized government where Ottawa controls everything. We were meant to be individual provinces that work together on some things. Funny enough with the whole pipeline thing, the reason that Ottawa has the permission or the ability to do interprovincial projects was not so that they could adjudicate and stop projects. It was so that they could ensure that no province could block another province from trading with the outside world. So they've taken what was meant to happen and they turned it on their head and they've become the problem themselves. All of these things show us the issue. So I am encouraged by what's going on in the world today. I'm encouraged by the way that the movement is progressing. Funny enough, this question on a question is actually not a bad thing because in the meantime, we're able to see the work that the federal government is doing, or lack thereof, we're able to see that even though there is a serious problem, they're still not willing to do what it takes to solve that problem. And we're willing to see that the premier is trying as hard as she can to solve the problem from within Canada. She's proving through her efforts, whether she means to or not, that Canada does not actually function any longer as a country for the whole country.
Mhm.
So that'd be some opening things I'd say on what's going on these days.
Yeah, no, thanks for weighing in. I mean, the way you put that is excellent. And yeah, like I look at it at face value too, in the sense that what is Danielle Smith saying? Like that's how I look at it. And she, as you said, she seems to be always kind of chanting the mantra, like Alberta sovereignty within United Canada. But as you said, like it isn't working. And I think that was the mentality, of course, that I had a while back as well. But as I talked to Michael Wagner too about that, but when you look at the history of how people have tried to do this in the past, like nothing changes, like nothing's happening, and then you get the Trudeaus, of course, right? I mean, Justin Trudeau definitely did not like it. He just fanned the flames, like he just put gasoline on the Independence fire, and like look at where we are now, and yeah, like thank God there's a lot of people here like that truly are willing to kind of take that Alberta flag and it's like, yeah, we want freedom, we want independence. And I look at it as basically a movement, as you describe in your website too, to save the old Canada. That's what I see this as. It's kind of like you've got this strange leftist woke Canada, like it just like of course Trudeau said post-national state. I think that's the best way to summarize what we've seen over the last decade. No mainstream, no core identity. You see that everywhere now in the country, right? Like, because they're not willing to step up and, like, hey, like, we're going to defend our own country. Oh, no, right? Like, if anything, it's trampled upon our very own. And then everyone else's is elevated, like, above our own, right? And a lot of us have really had enough. It's like there's no respect for the host country. It's not everyone, mind you, right? It's not everyone. But that's at least the way that I've looked at it. And like when I go to another country, I don't just think I'm going to just set up shop there. Like if I did that in a place like Iran under with the IRGC and the way the Shia Islamic regime is, you'll be killed. Like you either follow their rule of law, like look what's going on, right, with the people that want freedom or a liberal democracy, as we still have that here, to arguably, in Canada, right? And people just seem to be so blinded, like to how this country really is at like I'm going to call it at a real pivotal moment. Like it actually makes me quite sad. I'm very sad. I'm
Yeah,
concerned. Yeah,
yeah,
for the next
it's a big
generation.
issue.
So
We have a country where until Pierre Trudeau, we all had core values, right? And he did his
yeah.
best to strip it away and destroy it. It's one of the reasons why some people attack the monarchy. And I say, I hope you know that you're on the side of Pierre Trudeau in that one. If you hate Westminster and the monarchy, you and Pierre Trudeau will get along great. And for
Hmm.
a Western Canadian, that ought to make your skin crawl. We've had our entire system hollowed out and stripped away from what it was supposed to be. We've had the ideals and values of Canada stripped away. You know, the amazing thing about Canada is it was built by people who came from elsewhere.
Hmm.
And it's not bad to have people from elsewhere because that's how we all got here. But we all came and were part of this new project of what we were doing. We all came and assimilated with the values that were here. And it's so good to see that we have that ability, especially in Alberta, of anybody coming and being an Albertan. You don't have to be born here. You don't have to be a fifth
Hmm.
generation Albertan before somehow you have legitimacy. You just have to work hard and
Yeah.
build the good of Alberta. That's the beauty. But what we've seen across Canada now is there are people who are guiding the country down a destructive path where they're stripping away everything that Canada is supposed to mean and then still saying, this is Canada. You know, I
Hmm.
was just recently in Italy, right? You talk to an Italian about Italy, and they are going to not say, oh, we need to take a knee, and well, we were a genocidal state, and, you know, back in the day, oh, Rome did terrible things. They pound their chest and they're proud of what Italy is. They're proud of Italian language. They're proud of all that it means to be them. I go to Serbia and I teach, and guess what? Serbs are proud of Serbia. They're proud of Serbian history. They're proud of their culture. They're proud of their language. People in countries around the world are proud of who they are, and that's part of a national identity.
Yeah.
If you hate your own identity, if you hate yourself, then you're going to have problems. That's how psychological issues happen. And yet we have a country where the government, not the
Yeah.
normal people, the government has actually codified self hatred. We have a parliament where all parties stood up and together voted to call the country itself a genocidal state. That's insane. That's
Yeah.
nuts. They basically put us on the same level as someone like Joseph Stalin when he wiped out the Ukrainian people maliciously in the Holodomor, or on the same level as the Turks when they murdered the Armenians in a genuine genocide where they were deliberately trying to wipe out every single person there of that race. And the Canadian Parliament said Canada is the same as those people. That's the kind of situation we're in. It's not that we
Yeah.
hate every single person across the country. We bear them no ill will, but we do have a problem with an Ottawa that wants to strip away everything that Canada was supposed to mean. And then the worst part is they dare to hold the flag and say, this is Canada and you must be loyal to it. You know, the people who
Yeah.
fought and died for the freedom of other people, the freedom from authoritarianism, they fought and died to protect the world and Western civilization. Do you think they would be proud? Do you think they would stand there and say, oh, yes, this is the Canada I fought for, as we take a knee and call ourselves a settler colonial genocidal state? This isn't what they fought for. They fought for the freedoms and the values that Canada used to stand for. It was a welcoming place, a place where anybody could come from anywhere, but where we did have a core identity. We did have true values, where it meant something more than hockey and maple syrup, and I'm not American in order to be a Canadian. And they're
Yeah.
trying to strip that away. So we do have to fight against that.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. I appreciate all your commentary, man. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think of the Trudeaus, right? Like when I think of Trudeau's, I think of Pierre too in the National Energy Program, and then how he price fixed like our exports on oil. Like a lot of people are not necessarily aware of these things, right? But some of these points, right? Like and as you mentioned too, like one thing that really took me was when we spoke a little bit about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, because initially you think, oh, this is a good idea, right? So maybe you can talk about this too, like to get your take on that, like because Pierre Trudeau, well, the Constitution was repatriated in 1982, I believe that's what happened, right? We were under the British North American Act, and then and of course the Charter of Rights and Freedoms kicked in. So what are your thoughts on how that affected like Alberta or the different provinces as Trudeau rolled out this national binding document, right? Because it's very generic too, right? Like the way the words are used. So obviously, if you're a Christian man, you're going to interpret this differently than you're someone that's on the other side of the spectrum, right? With regards to some of the points. So what do you think about that? Like weigh in on that one for us.
Yeah, the charter was not an instrument that gave us rights. The propaganda around it is, wow, look at this. We were given rights and we have
Hmm.
rights because of the charter. No, our rights are inalienable and they came before the government. Government did not grant us our rights. There's the old British tradition of the rights of an Englishman that our tradition is part of. And that means that the government doesn't have the right to say that it is the giver of rights. Magna Carta, the other foundational documents of our Westminster British understanding of government and law, is that law is above the government, that even the government is under the law, and that rights are inalienable. They come with responsibilities, but they cannot be adjudicated by the government. They cannot decide whether or not you have a right to things. And what the charter did is it actually stripped away rights because it placed our rights in the hands of the Supreme Court, able to adjudicate them, able to decide what they mean. And shockingly, over since the 1982 institution of the Constitution, they have decided to invent new rights and strip away other rights in the name of the charter. For instance, the right to life means that you have the right to euthanasia, to kill yourself, because, well, that's important. The right not to have cruel and unusual punishment means that a child rapist cannot have a mandatory minimum sentence that makes sure that they are in jail long enough to pay the price for their crime, and especially so that they do not harm other people. The charter has been wielded by the appointed courts to be a tool of pushing progressive changes upon Canada. It stripped away the role and the authority of Parliament, and it instituted the courts as supreme over all other things in this country. A very Republican and American style thing, by the way, we should note. That's how they have it down there. Their Supreme Court, they have to be worried about whether it's a conservative or a liberal justice because they get to adjudicate the Constitution. Well, the Charter did that to us. Before that, if there was a problem, Parliament could legislate. Now, when Parliament tries to legislate to fix things, what happens? It goes to the court, and the court says, nope, sorry, that's unconstitutional. You can't do it. Even Stephen Harper, one of the best prime ministers we've ever had, when he tried to institute real changes through Parliament, when he tried to change things,
Mhm.
the courts would take his laws and strike them down and say they were unconstitutional. This is a broken system. This is a broken way of governing, and we cannot fix it as long as we're under this Constitution. You would have to open the Constitution. You'd have to change it. Well, you're never going to get all the provinces. 750 is the rule. 7 of the
Yeah.
provinces with at least 50% of the population. You're never going to
Yeah.
get them to
No.
open the Constitution and change things. So we are blocked by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms from being able to fix Canada. And that's how Trudeau intended it. This was not an accident or an incident. He
Mm.
meant to make his Constitution bulletproof so that he could continue even beyond the grave to push Canada in the progressive direction that he liked. He was not someone who liked the traditional values of our British way. He did not like the monarchy. He famously mocked it on numerous occasions, doing ballerina pirouettes behind the Queen as she walked along, and making sure that when he appointed governors general, he appointed foolish people, which has been a liberal tradition ever since. They want to strip away the legitimacy of our system so that all that is left is the central government in Ottawa, the Prime Minister's office, supported by the Supreme Court, wielding any power they want to control and to centralize Canada in their grasp.
Yeah. And yeah, thanks for those comments. That's basically the way that I'm understanding it to be too. Like when, and also like just to kind of build on what you said there, like I always think about the 200 seats that are in Quebec and Ontario, like federally, okay? And then I know that we have 37 here. And of course, I look at Alberta, it's kind of like an unhealthy business relationship where we're putting in a lot, like financially, right? Which I think everyone's starting to realize, yeah, like Alberta's doing a lot financially, but yet we really don't have a whole lot of say, like
Yeah.
federally and yeah, like I mean, this is why there's so many issues. This is what's fueling it. And basically the way you're explaining things too, like is that we really don't have any way of changing this system and like that's why for me too the conclusion is Alberta independence, and if enough of us want it, like it can be so, like because there's actually a legal pathway forward too. Like you can comment on that a little bit, like see that's I didn't even really know, I wasn't really aware, but I like the way Keith Wilson brings that to the table too, like that there's a legal pathway forward because the Supreme Court of Canada outlaid that from I think they call it the secession reference, or it's to do with Quebec, right? Like it's and here we are, right? So if and this is something that all provinces like have the potential to do that, right? So what do you think about that? And of course, they don't like to they some of us, some people will call us traitors, but like guys, legally, like you want to play the system. The system says that we can legally do this, and that's what we're trying to do, right? We're not out
Yeah.
there with
And
like machine guns and muskets or whatever, right? Like we're trying to do this legally, right? So like I think you mentioned
exactly.
that
And
too,
this
right?
is
So what?
not, yeah, it's not traitorous. The
Yeah.
idea of treason, yeah, is to do something unlawful or harmful. Funny enough, it's Trudeau's Supreme Court, Pierre Trudeau's system with the Supreme Court that means, people point to the Clarity Act and they say, well, this or that or this reason, Parliament, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, the Quebec secession reference trumps the Clarity Act because Pierre Trudeau's own system made the Supreme Court the final arbiter and adjudicator. So if the
Okay.
Supreme Court secession reference says that a province can secede, we can secede. So Pierre Trudeau may be
Yeah.
built worse than he thought in that sense, but we got to take the wins when we can get them. We have the right to
Yeah.
engage in a lawful, careful process whereby
Yeah.
Alberta leaves the country. It's just an evolution of responsible government. It's not really even dramatic. Canada at one time was a colony of the
Yeah.
UK. We were part of the empire. They governed us. Then we grew up and we were capable of responsible government on our own. So Canada went its own way. Now Alberta has grown up and we see the difference with the rest of the country. They are racking up massive deficits despite the fact that we keep voting against it. And we are
Mhm.
having to carry those bills. They are doing drastic cultural changes, whether we like it or not. They are instituting authoritarian policies that will see the central government in Ottawa trying to control more and more of your life. And Alberta doesn't want to do it. So we have the right to ask the question. We have the right, because of the Quebec secession reference, to, in an orderly, legal fashion, leave Canada and become an independent country. We don't have to burn down the rest of the country. We don't have to hate them. We don't have to go to
Yeah.
war. There's talk of like Canada will, cancel all of your passports and
Yeah, I've
Canada
heard that.
will blockade you at the border. And to me, that's one of the funniest things that Forever Canada says.
Yeah.
They hate Canada so much, or they think Canada is so nasty and hateful that the
Yeah.
response of the rest of the country to us taking responsible government for ourselves would be to harm us as much as possible.
Yeah.
And yet they're the ones that want us to stay in Canada. If they
Yeah.
really believe that
Yeah.
Canada is the kind of place that would willfully and spitefully harm someone for doing something other than what Canada wants them to do, that actually says a lot. That
It
tells us of
does.
the world that we're living in Canada, where the central Ottawa government potentially would, in their opinion, be the kind of government that would hurt us on purpose, even though it would cost them by blocking trade or by stopping Albertans from going to the rest of Canada. So here we
Yeah.
have a situation where we see the problem. We see that Canada is not functioning. We see that we are not represented. As you said, we cannot change the representation in the House of Commons. It's constitutional.
Hmm.
There is one MP per 43,000 people in Prince Edward Island. For us,
Yeah.
it's one in like 151,000. So the
Yeah.
Maritimes as a whole, with a maritime population of about the same as Alberta and Saskatchewan, have more say than Alberta does.
Hmm.
And that is a serious problem. They have more senators and they have the seats to be able to control things and change things. So
Yeah.
we need to make sure that we redress this, but it can't be done within the Constitution. Unfortunately, if it could, it would have been done by now. We're not the first attempt. Reform was a
No.
wonderful movement where Preston Manning, in good faith, said the West wants in. Let's go and let's try to change Ottawa from the inside. Reform became the Conservative Party of Canada. And the Conservative Party of Canada is not changing Canada from the inside. In fact, they've surrendered to the same old way of doing things. We have to win votes in the East or we won't get elected. And that's true. If you
Yeah.
don't win Ontario and Quebec, you
Yeah.
can
That's right.
have the map of the West painted blue. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like just you talking about even the what they call it, the triple E Senate reform, right? You touched on that a little bit, right? Like yeah, like I wasn't even aware of these things, but like where your senators would be elected and they would be empowered and there would be equal representation. I think it's would be a little bit more like the American system, but again, like because this would be a change to the Constitution, as you've referenced before too. Like you just can't do it without the 750 rule, right? Like coming into play, which the East is not going to do anything that's going to be detrimental to how they benefit right now. Like and even you talking about this the senators, right? I know Atlantic Canada, that's including Newfoundland, they have 30.
Yep.
We have 6. Like in Alberta, we have 5 million people, and I know Atlantic Canada has about 2.7 million people. You look into these basic numbers, and you're kind of like, now, originally, the population out in Alberta, I don't think was very high at all, right? So, but yeah, like you said, we've grown up, but the system hasn't adapted, right, to accommodate, I would say, Alberta's growth. And there's no, like, they're not taking any responsibility. See, that's what amazes me about the Forever Canada people. Like, it's like, how come you can't at least acknowledge the issues like that people like yourself, like there's very intelligent people tabling the issues. Why can't you guys at least acknowledge it and say, okay, if we want to keep Alberta here and we want to actually quell the fires of independence, then the proper response is like we need to address these issues the way I see it. Like there's certain major things that need to be looked at, like in a responsible, mature way. And then all of a sudden, like I don't know, you can't tell me that these people can't figure out a solution to what's going on here. But I'm not gonna do that work for them. I'll tell you that, right? But the way that I would respond, okay, if I was a Forever Canada leader, is at least you got to start acknowledging the issues, like the
Yeah.
leaders. Like I mean, like even I don't know what your thoughts are on Pierre. I don't criticize him. Like I don't go out of my way to really attack him too much. But I know like with him, I mean, of course he's going to be like towing the line with Danielle Smith, and to me, ironically, I heard his base is primarily like Alberta Independence supporter, so he's in a that's a difficult place to be, right? The guys that voted you in, it'd be interesting to know the exact numbers. Like I don't know what you think. Like what would you say to Danielle Smith and Pierre Poilievre if you had the chance to really engage them? Um,
Yeah. I
what
think
would you say to
Pierre,
them?
yeah, Pierre has to do what he's doing. He's the only federal politician right now who at least has had the decency to come out and say, hey, I see the problem for Albertans. Now, he's a federal politician. He loses his
Yeah.
job if Alberta becomes independent. So I can understand that he's definitely on the Forever Canada side, right?
Yeah.
You're never
Yeah.
going to become Prime Minister of Canada as a
That's right.
conservative if
Yeah.
a huge chunk of your core base leaves Canada. So I
Yeah.
can't blame him for campaigning for us not to go, not
Yeah.
just because he's somehow selfish, but because he really believes in the federal project, or he wouldn't be out there
He
in
does.
Ottawa.
Yeah. He does.
And so I can't blame him for that. He is trying to recognize the issue. I mean, honestly, the only way the federal government is going to save things is if they were to do what Pierre is doing and come and say, "Hey, I get your concerns and we're going to do what it takes to fix it. We are going to do what it takes." Not just we're going to make nice speeches and sign
Yeah.
MOUs a la Mark Carney. But
Yeah.
tomorrow, C-69 is gone. The no more tanker law is gone. These things are out of the law books forever. We are not going to tolerate any more harm against your province. We're going to fix equalization. We're going to stop with all of these nonsense cultural policies that tear
Yeah.
down every bit of Canada and our history and heritage. We're going to cut out all of the authoritarian, controlling laws that we're trying to put in place that are trying to take over people's lives. We're going to stop with the gun nonsense where we're taking
Yeah.
law abiding, honest people and making them criminals while turning around and letting criminals out of jail. We're going to stop. We're going to stop. We're going to stop. But the reality is they won't. So I'm
Yeah.
appreciative of Pierre that at least he's trying to take the right stance. I
Yeah.
understand it. With Danielle, I think she is trying to do her best. We were all a bit annoyed with her when she came out sounding like Thomas Lukasik and Jason Kenney saying, $400
Yeah.
billion cost, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there will be a cost to independence. It's not sunshine and roses. There's not going to be money falling from every tree. And the only constants in life is death and taxes. So I promise you'll still be paying taxes after we're independent.
Yeah.
But she made a bit of a mistake there in sounding like those guys, where I think for her, she really does want to try and make Canada work. And I have to give her credit for that. She is someone who's clear with her stance. She's a federalist, okay. But she has also done the work to let us have our voices heard. And as
Yep.
long as Danielle Smith is not seen to be putting her thumb on the scale in an inappropriate way, as long as she is being honest, but not playing dirty or acting like Jason Kenney, where he goes around spouting ad hominem attacks on anyone that disagrees with him, then
Yeah.
I think she's doing okay. And we have to realize that she may not be perfect. She may not be our ideal of everything we would hope to get. But
Yeah.
the alternative could be a lot worse. We could have Premier Jason Kenney still. Well, fat chance
Oh
of her
yeah.
making anything happen with him. We could
Yeah.
have Premier Naheed Nenshi. If that's not enough to give you horrible nightmares, then I don't know what
Yep.
would. We
Yeah,
know
that's
what
right.
the NDP did the last time they were in power. So we can look at Danielle and say she's not exactly perfect. Nobody is, and it's a hard job. But we do have to recognize we have a referendum question because of her. And after we
Yep.
win this referendum, she will be responsible to hear us. And I actually believe that's one of her best strengths. She does listen. So the movement is
Okay.
growing, the movement is serious. And if we win this referendum, she's going to take it seriously. And the hope then is that she will move to the next step.
Okay. That's well said. I mean, that's a well balanced way of looking at it. And that's why it's good to talk to people like yourself to because it's not all about like the torches and pitchforks, right? Some people have that mentality, right? And I get it, right? But at the same time, yeah, it's like, okay, we need to be balanced. And you're right too. I mean, she has done a lot to let people move forward with even the petition and all these things. And yes, we do have a voice. And for me, the hope is that all this is really going to facilitate changes that otherwise would have never happened. So I think we're seeing the beginnings of that already. And yeah, it's very hard to predict the outcome. I mean, I'm certainly not going to make any predictions, but yeah, definitely appreciate your thoughts and commentaries on these things. And also one of the key things with you, I know you're not opposed to what I'm going to call the Westminster style of government, but you're more so opposed, like again, like to what I would say that Pierre Trudeau brought in, right, with the Charter of Rights and Freedom. So maybe let's revisit that a little bit. Like, okay, so if what are you advocating for in terms of like, okay, if we become independent, how would that still work with the Westminster system, if I can frame it that way? Yeah, because I
Yeah.
found it
So
interesting. I never heard someone with your point of view.
yeah,
So
our basic Westminster system, the Westminster style of government, there's over 30 countries that have a Westminster form of government,
okay.
and all of them look different. We had a fairly standard, fairly well functioning Westminster style system up until Pierre Trudeau changed it into essentially a Republican system that wears the Westminster system like a skin suit out of Silence of the Lambs, if you want a really creepy picture of it. Uh,
Okay.
it's the old way of doing things is to have an oppositional legislature, the crown in parliament, as it were, that is supreme, that the House of Commons and the Senate together make a supreme body that is responsible for making law for the people of the country. And all of that is tied up with the crown being the final reserve of powers, holding the ultimate power that basically keeps the legislature in check. It's a rarely used conventional type power where the convention is they don't interfere. But if everything goes really squirrely and off the rails, they're there as a final safety pin to stop something bad from happening. The court's role in a Westminster system is not to adjudicate whether the laws are constitutional, but to adjudicate cases based upon the law, which should be the role of a court, not to make law, but to adjudicate based upon the law. This system allows for flexibility. It doesn't have to look like it does now. In fact, if it looked like it did now, we'd all be kind of annoyed. but it's a basic structure that provides for the supremacy of the legislature, orderly government, limited government, and responsive government. It is a government that can get things done. One of the
Mhm.
problems with the American Republic is you have three different branches: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislative. They're all opposed to each other. You can have a president from one party and a legislature from a different party and a court that's, in the middle or on one end or the other, and all of them are fighting against each other, and you can't get things done. It doesn't function. We actually want a government that functions. We just want a government that's not crazy and trying to send us off a cliff. Nobody would have a problem with the parliament currently. When Stephen Harper had a majority, people weren't ready to burn the country down because Stephen Harper wasn't out to get the country. He wasn't out
Mhm.
to destroy things. He wasn't out to make authoritarian laws that controlled every aspect of your life. So having a strong parliament that's able to function and make law is not a bad thing. Having an executive that has to have the confidence of the legislature is not a bad thing. That guarantees that you don't end up with a prime minister who wants to go left and everybody who elected the representatives wants to go right. We have
Yeah.
that ability in our system. And the other cool thing is in our system, the prime minister really doesn't matter a whole lot. Why don't we assassinate prime ministers? They're not the embodiment of the nation. That's reserved for
Mhm.
the crown. We can be totally loyal to the king, no matter whether we personally like him or not. And we can still be utterly disloyal to the prime minister. We can say the prime minister stinks and everything he stands for stinks. And we can still be the loyal opposition. That's actually the title of the opposition in Parliament, His Majesty's Loyal Opposition. It's not
Yeah.
bad to have opposition. It's not bad to have an
No, it's good.
adversarial
Yeah.
system. Yeah, it's not bad to have the legislature supreme because guess what? The job of the legislature is to look and say, hey, what's going wrong? Okay, we need to change this law. We need to adjust this law. People are murdering people and it doesn't seem to be stopped. Okay, we need to put some stiffer penalties in then for murder. To change the law to benefit the people, always remembering they're under the law. But what we have now is a situation where, like in the American Republic, at the end of the day, the legislature makes a law and then they have to go cap in hand to the court to ask, is this constitutional? Not is it a
Right.
good law or a bad law, but just is it constitutional? And as we can see, a lot of bad laws have been declared constitutional, and a lot of
Mhm.
good laws have been thrown out because the judges decided it didn't meet their criteria for constitutionality. So we have a
Yeah.
broken system because of that. I would love to return to the good old Westminster system that's able to be adjusted and modified to suit our needs. That's one of the benefits of not having a written constitution like the British, is when you need to adjust the way that the structure works, you just adjust it. It's like driving a car. If we had to go through a process
Yeah.
of constitutional amendment every time we wanted to turn the steering wheel, we would crash really quickly.
Yeah.
Driving a car
It's a
takes
good way of
driving,
putting it.
and with a
Yeah.
government, we need that. So it's not a bad thing to have a government that can be adjusted and altered as it needs to reflect the new situations in society.
Yeah. I mean, I've never heard anyone quite put it quite like the way that you have. So you definitely have an understanding, right, that I haven't been made aware of before. So yeah, I gotta sit down and think about that. It's interesting, and the only danger, the danger that I see predominantly in the world today, right, is this battle with respect to who gets to define right from wrong. Like I don't think we would have we're obviously not going to disagree on I would say morally speaking, right? See, this is what I see happening in the West is a total moral decay, and which is fundamentally splitting the country apart with, I mean, you could say two groups, but I mean, it's who gets to define right from wrong and everyone in between. I know it's not a binary thing and people, there's a spectrum, right? Okay. You might be like hardcore, okay, like, yeah, like I'm following the biblical principles to the dotted I and cross T. Uh, and then another person just rejects all that, right? And of course, doesn't want you putting your views on their kids and vice versa, right? That's kind of like one of the like even if Alberta becomes independent too, you're gonna see these some of these issues And that's one of the greatest struggles that I see in the Western world today. I don't think it was ever perfect, but I think you probably would agree that we've really in to a large degree over the last several generations, like because all you got to do is look at the public schooling system and the universities, because I look at the moral compass as like the gauge of the health of a society. Because my understanding of the little bit of history I understand is that when the moral decay happened in a nation, the country collapsed. Like it took years, right? Like decades, but it started to erode from within. And I see that happening in Western countries, especially in Canada, because I don't see leaders standing up for that, right? Like it's always this, well, we don't want to like upset this group of people here, so we're not going to make these statements. And it's a strange, again, post-national state, like kind of no core identity, like no mainstream managerial system that has no moral compass is the way that I see Canada, quote unquote, the way it is today, the majority of it. Obviously not like you or myself. And I'm not a perfect man, okay? It's not about me trying to be holier than thou, but I still have my convictions. And I just see that that's one of the primary points that brings me to like actually a place where I feel very upset because I don't see these things as good things, right? Like
Mhm.
who gets to draw the line, Matt, right? Like you tell me, like how do you, yeah, you can live and let live to a point. But again, like if you look at again, like Sharia law in the Islamic world, I mean, they definitely outline it's a whole way of life, right? They call it the deen, and they have Sharia, and especially in some of the Muslim majority countries. But I mean, I understand their system, like because it's very clear, okay? But like in a place like this, I, like to me, it's a free for all. Like it's in a free for all state the way I see it. So I don't know what are your comments on that? That was kind of a like that's how I think
Yeah.
anyway, right? Yeah. And I know,
Yeah. Western civilization was built as Christian civilization. That's an uncomfortable fact for some people. But
yeah,
the reason the West is because Christian values underpin that. Now, the amazing thing about Christian values is Christian values don't say everyone has to be forced to believe what we believe. That's actually one of the underlying values of Christianity is you can't force people to convert. Unlike other countries and other
yeah,
religions, Christianity says that you must win people, not force people.
yeah,
But the basic values of what we would call the Judeo-Christian ethic, things
yeah,
like don't murder, don't steal, don't commit adultery, these
yeah,
things underpinned Western society, a rule of law, peace, order, and good government, the famous Canadian
yeah,
triple truth. And it meant that what we all valued, whether we believed in God or not, was that the core biblical tenets were valuable for people to live by. Don't hate other people. Value women. That's a Western Christian principle that was
hmm
not around beforehand. It's one of the value of women is something that the West instituted. Value people of other cultures and other religions. Treat them properly. Don't attack them or hurt them. When someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn your right as well. All these different types of ideas underpin Western civilization. The rule of law, the fact that, hey, if there's a rule, we should all follow it. It should be a good rule. If it's not, it should be changed. Justice was a basic value that we saw in the West until quite recently. And justice wasn't about some technical definition of constitutionality, it was about everyone having the sense that the law was good and that it worked for everyone. And that if you were a victim, you would be protected. And if you are a wrongdoer, you would be punished. These are all Western values. And we have stripped away that morality. We've
yeah,
gone from saying what is right and what is wrong to what can you get away with? And
yeah,
now all of a sudden we have politicians being corrupt and as low as can be, and people who were formerly legit, people who are respected now being less respected because it seems like that's the value of everybody. And we all struggle with this. We're not perfect. I've done
yeah,
terrible, horrible things as everyone else has. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That's in the Bible. So the
Yeah.
Christian understanding of the Western civilization, or the Judeo-Christian, if you'd prefer, is not everyone has to be perfect or everyone has to believe in this religion. It's everyone has to play by the same set of rules for the good of all. And as long
Yeah.
as we did in the West play by those rules, everybody benefited. It's why everyone wanted to come to the West.
Yeah.
But the problem was the West lost its confidence in its own basic moral structures and basic
Yeah.
legal structures. And we've been trying to tear them down. You see, even in Britain, the mother of the Westminster Parliament, under Tony Blair, they did the same thing. They stripped away the authority of Westminster. They instituted a Supreme Court. They brutalized their own system in the name of tolerance and equality and all these other things. And they've
Yeah.
produced governments that don't function for the people. They're now arresting people for memes, for gosh sakes.
Yeah.
That's not what Western values are. We believe in liberty and freedom. We believe in people having the right to do what they want, not just, two
Yeah.
consenting adults, because there is a community, but the
Yeah.
idea that if you are not breaking the law, if you are not harming other people, then you actually have the right to just be your own person. That the government doesn't have the right to be involved in every aspect of your life and
Yeah.
control everything about you. I like Jim Dinning. It's funny, he's come out on the Forever Canada side, but it's actually one of his quotes that I really love on government. And it says that he said, government should be as hands off as possible, which then gives it the right, when it has to reach in a meaty claw and do something. And that's the
Mhm.
Albertan way. It's
Yeah.
those type of things that were also the Western way. The Western way of freedom and liberty for a person with responsibility was not the government at the center of society. God was at the center of society. He was the one that you look to
Yeah.
for the answers, not the government. And government has tried to replace God. That's one of the horrible things that's happened lately.
Yeah.
Government has said, we will be all knowing, we will be all seeing, we will be all providing, we will be omnipotent and all the other omnis that should be God's right. They've now taken for their own. And
Yeah.
government is full of people, and people don't get things right. So we should have them limited. We should have them in control, but they're not. They're trying to rule everything and control everything. It's a different set of values that comes from a very different place. A
Mhm.
humanist, a central, the idea that humans are going to be the answer for everything, that government can fix all the problems. Well, it's not true. I mean, Ronald Reagan said it well. Some of the scariest words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah. I like that you highlighted that. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. So, what are you going to encourage people to do where we're at now? Like, I know there's town hall meetings we can go and be a part of. The campaign is on. Okay, we did get somewhat of a question. So there is something that's going to happen October 19th, right? So to me, yeah, let's up the bar. Yeah, vote yes, right? So we can take the next steps is what I say to people. But what do you encourage people to do? For me, it's educate yourself. I always say 1 to 2 hours a week. I know everyone's really busy with their lives. It's tough, right? Because you've got kids, you've got jobs, you've got things to do. But I still say like 1 to 2 hours. Listen to Dr. Rowley. There's Michael Wagner. There's there's Mitch out there. There's Jeff Rath. I mean, there's people of all kinds of different colors. But I think it's important that people weigh into some of the podcasts, especially if you're driving. Hey, turn one on, listen. You might learn something, right? And I feel like it's all about identifying the problem. Okay, like that's what mechanics do. So it's more of the line of work I'm in. Like we try to find the root cause problem, and then you got to bring in the solution, right?
That's right.
So yeah. So
Yeah, and
what do you
that's the
think?
big
Yeah,
piece. Yeah, what you said is the big piece. Identify the problem,
yeah,
but then get the right solution. If you're a mechanic and you say, "Hey, the oil needs to be changed," and then you proceed to change the transmission fluid instead, the oil is still not changed. You haven't solved the problem. And this is
yeah,
one of the areas where I've been trying to point out where the problem is. The problem is Ottawa. The problem is not Westminster. It's not the Crown.
yeah,
It's not average Easterners. It's not a whole lot of other things. It's not Danielle Smith. The problem is Ottawa. So keep your focus on changing what needs to be changed. Win this referendum. And don't allow people who want to whip up your emotions and feelings to control you. It's not a panic. There's basically two options here. Either we win this referendum or we don't, and people continue to see what's evil. They continue to see
Yeah.
that things are going badly in Canada. Things will get worse, and more people will be persuaded. But the job is to be reasonable, to be
Yeah.
caring and loving, and to persuade people. Join Renew Alberta. Go to renewalberta.ca is a great way to get involved. Listen, like you say, get
Mhm.
educated.
Yeah.
Don't just take a simple answer from anyone. There was a guy, the Apostle Paul, and he went and he preached to the Bereans, who were people who wanted to hear the gospel, and it says they heard the gospel with joy from Paul, and then they went to check in the scriptures to see if what he said was true. And this is a good thing to do in anything,
Yeah.
whether it be politics, cookbooks, whatever. Go, if you hear something you like, go check to make sure it's true. Because even
Mhm.
on the independent side, some people make claims or say things that might not be the full truth, not even because they're willfully trying to deceive you.
Yeah.
Maybe they
Of
just don't
course.
know something. So check
Yeah.
it out, get involved, have good conversations. Above all, I say, you know what? Don't be unkind. Don't be hateful. If someone from Forever Canada slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek to them, right? Because guess what?
Tough.
We're not the ones that have to prove our point. Our point has been well proven. We just have to enjoy watching people start to wake up. And if this takes a lot of time, if, we have this first referendum and then a second one and it takes time, that's actually a benefit for us because Canada's not being fixed. The longer that we have to make our case, the better. Because it's not going to be like tomorrow, all of us. I mean, if tomorrow Canada was to become perfect and all the problems
Yeah.
were to be fixed
Not gonna
and we
happen.
didn't have to have independence because guess what? Now Canada functions as a federation the way it was intended. Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen. But
No.
we're not going to see, all the problems get fixed tomorrow. We're just going to see the steady march of more and more negative things coming from Ottawa that make our point and that protect us from any doubts on people's hands that maybe we're being, crazy and we're just mad over one election or that really we're just a bunch
Mhm.
of ditchbillies that don't like what's
Yeah, I
happening
get.
right
Yeah.
now, but we've got no
Yeah.
legitimacy, right?
Yeah.
We're making a solid case that's quantifiably, provably true. Canada is in trouble. It is running off a fiscal and a cultural cliff. And the more that people see, the more they will be convinced. So be kind, be gracious, be educated, and get active. And definitely get
Yeah.
involved with Renew Alberta. That's my organization. Feel free to be educated as much as you can through us. And we hope that you'll also help us out in what we're doing.
Yeah, no, thanks, Dr. Rowley. I appreciate your time. And yeah, I'll put all the I do a Substack article to just have all your links. I know you're on X, you're on YouTube, you got a Facebook page, so I'll make sure like at least within the spheres of people I know that people are well aware actually of the work that you're doing. So I'll do my part for you too in that respect. And thanks for your time. You bring I like that you bring a solid intellectual and Christian approach to this, which is well needed. We especially people like in the Christian world to me need to take a solid stand for what we believe in. Because we see like we're kind of like the watchmen, right? Kind of on the wall, and we see what's happening, and we want to help reverse the tide, if I can put it that way. And I would say ultimately, like call for repentance too, right? That we would turn back and that we could reverse some of the things that are coming down the road if we decide not to. So again, thanks for your time, Dr. Rowley. Appreciate everything you have to say, and I'll be following you closely and sharing your stuff. And thanks very much for joining us on the show today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.